Twilight's Nightmare, Chapter 24, Temporal Investigations. Starlight slowly noticed that she was aware, and she was floating in a star-filled void.
I was with Trixie, doing something,
she thought as her mind tried to piece things together. The fact that she was floating without the aid of magic and that there was the blue alicorn of dreams standing and waiting patiently in front of her provided her all the information that she needed.
Oh, so I'm dreaming. An astute observation. You came to that realization with more alacrity than most.
Luna praised.
No offense, Princess, but why are you here?
Starlight asked.
Not that it's a problem that you are.
She added sheepishly, to the one being that had total power here.
We have need of your services. You will make yourself ready for my arrival shortly.
Luna stated in a respectful but firm tone. No request, this was a command from the Princess of the Night. Starlight didn't want to see what would happen if she said no, so she nodded.
Yes, Princess. Then awaken and make your preparations.
Luna's horn then flashed. Starlight opened her eyes, revealing the inside of Trixie's wagon. She was wide awake, no hint of sleepiness remaining. Luna's command was clear in her mind, as if she had used some magic to ensure that it would be remembered. She did her best in the small wagon to gather what stuff she could think might be useful when she had no idea what she would be needed to do. There were other powerful unicorns out there, so it would most likely be something that she was good at.
This task is going to involve time, mind control, or cutie mark manipulation.
She thought sure of herself. There was simply no other reason she would be needed. She felt worried. Not that she couldn't help, no, it was her being worried what danger was out there in Equestria using one of those three. She began to gather up her stuff, doing her best to be quiet. Half waking up and clearly wanting the noise to stop, Trixie nearly turned Starlight into a teacup. Instead, because of her quick reflexes, she managed to reflect the spell. Unfortunately now, one of Starlight's books paid the price and was now a teacup instead.
Trixie!
Starlight called out.
Who dares awaken the great and powerful Trixie from her slumbers?
Before she could answer, a pulse of teleportation magic announced Luna's arrival. It was so powerful that Trixie fell out of her bed holding her horn. Starlight, being used to Twilight popping in and out of existence, had built up more than enough tolerance to just ignore it. Poking her head out of the wagon, Starlight was taken aback by what she saw. Luna was not alone. Two alicorn princesses alighted in front of Starlight, both equipped for war. Luna in a suit of night black mail with multiple daggers secured from her flanks, and Twilight in blood-red plate, her wings lined with wicked-looking blades. 6 armored Thestrals from the Night Guard added to the sinking feeling building in Starlight's gut. They rapidly took position, securing the clearing the wagon was in.
Starlight, are you ready to depart?
Luna asked clearly, expecting a positive answer.
You cannot leave Trixie here on her own!
The blue mare said, poking her head out of the wagon. Twilight tilted her head, seemingly looking straight through Trixie.
She did acquire the Alicorn amulet, so she might be able to provide some insight. Then we shall bring her, and make use of her ill-gotten expertise.
Luna decreed. Trixie blanched, releasing a slight squeak. Starlight noticed Trixie's stage persona about to rear its head, and quickly used her aura to hold the blue mare's muzzle closed.
We will be ready in just a moment, Princess,
she said respectfully. She used a mix of her aura and teleportation to gather everything both of them would need. Trixie added her magic show supplies to her outfit with her own aura, as she whispered to Starlight.
I was just going to say, the great and not quite as powerful Trixie is at your service. There was no need to muzzle my muzzle. Sorry, I couldn't take the chance.
Starlight apologized. Luna and Twilight approached. When Luna lit her horn, Starlight wanted to raise a shield just to ward off the force of the Alicorn's magic. The Night Guard landing in a tight circle around them, the world darkened as the shadows closed in. The stars in Luna's mane blazed bright, as the rest of it sucked in the light. The teleport felt like falling into an endless abyss. Bursting from the darkness, Starlight found herself and Trixie high in the air, suspended in Luna's aura. After so much of practice, it only took moments to wrap herself in her own magic. As soon as her magic was in place, the Night Princess's aura faded from her. Looking around, she could see below them for miles was a sea of crimson-streaked magenta flames, all of it hypnotically dancing. If it wasn't for the trees and mountains in the distance, Starlight would have thought that she had arrived in another plane. But her best friend Trixie had her eyes tightly closed.
That was the strangest teleport ever, but it wasn't that bad,
Starlight thought.
Is the brave and fearless Trixie gonna open her eyes?
She asked teasingly. As soon as Trixie opened her eyes and could take in the current high-altitude situation, she screamed and flailed about. The screams were cut off as Twilight's magic wrapped her in a silence bubble.
Is this?
Twilight asked, and Luna nodded. Twilight looked around and pointed to a point in space.
This would be the center of the blast. There's so much. At least it's only this bad,
Twilight said. Luna turned her gaze on Starlight.
We require to see what happened here 6 days ago, during the 4th hour of our dominion.
Starlight glanced at Twilight, unsure. Her friend nodded, then waved her hoof at the fire below.
I was attacked here. This is the result. We need to— You were attacked?
Starlight asked in disbelief. The sheer scale of fires below looked like it wouldn't have been out of place in the aftermath of Twilight's fight with Tyrek. Starlight looked at Trixie, who had calmed down now and instead of panicking was now looking a little indigent.
Can you let Trixie speak, please?
Twilight considered Trixie for a moment and then let the sound bubble drop.
The transportation left a lot to be desired.
Trixie murmured to herself. Starlight noticed one of Twilight's ears flick towards her friend. Had she heard that? There was no response other than that, so she set about her task. Turning her attention to the area of space indicated, Starlight first cast a whole host of detection, sense enhancement, recording, and analysis spells. Twilight might have had an encyclopedic knowledge of nearly everything magical, but still. Others like Starlight were smart enough to have options to get around that hurdle in other ways. As each layer of magic built upon the last, the world became brighter and clearer. Some of the spells, mostly Twilight's, added labels over things in her vision. Starlight's own just imparted the knowledge straight into her mind. It was one of the many advantages of being good at mind magic she had found, since it didn't count as being evil if you used it. Her preparation done, she moved on to the limited time spell Twilight had asked her to invent.
I can only view the past. No chance of interaction, no chance of seeing the future. All perfectly safe on the timeline. No chance of ending the world, or deleting important friendships again.
She reassured herself. A weak shield spell formed around the group, its internal surface looking like a rippling mirror. As its surface began to calm, the time in the outside world seemed to race. The 6 days requested to roll back, the sky flickering between night and day several times a minute. Twilight was unbothered. She had helped with the spell, if only on the safety features, and Luna was actually looking impressed. Trixie's jaw just hung open. At least this high up, a bug wasn't gonna fly in her mouth. And all that time, the fire didn't change. It was still burning in the present as much as it was when it had first formed. As time kept reversing, the flames all seemed to leap into the air, converging upon the point in the sky that Twilight had indicated. The flames unexploded into a complex set of spell runes etched in the sky, and the magenta fire rotating about an unconscious-looking Twilight in her current armor, looking horribly burnt. A bleeding wound was on her neck, and her horn was cracked and blackened. Trixie gasped. Starlight didn't want to meet Luna's eyes, and if looks could kill, the mountain up ahead would be a smoking crater. Starlight examined past Twilight carefully. She was under the effect of at least 2 defensive spells, both complex and linked together, probably reinforcing each other.
We need to follow her back to the temple. Starlight, if you would continue our journey into the past.
Luna said. While Starlight would like more time to study the spells Twilight of the past was under the effect of, she was not going to keep an angry princess waiting. They followed Twilight's flight back to the temple, concealed in the side of the mountain. During the trip, Starlight ran some numbers. At the speed Twilight was traveling, unpowered by spell or wings, she failed to see how Twilight was not just a bloody smear flying through the air. The amount of force needed to have thrown her almost a mile in a risking arc from the temple was just mind-boggling. Sure, Starlight could blast some pony with that much of an impact, however, it would take somewhere between 10 and 20% of her available magic. As they approached, her detection spells picked up the ultrasonic chatter between the Night Guard. They were each watching an assigned direction, reporting everything to each other. At the moment, they seemed to be focused on looking for any pony in the area, instead of the main attraction. With no need to be in the air anymore, the group was walking as they entered the temple. The entrance chamber of the temple was a mess. One side of the room was in the process of uncollapsing as past Twilight sailed back in, ending up lying on the floor curled up. Crossing the threshold, over half of Starlight's detection spells stopped reporting anything useful.
So this place is magically concealed,
she thought. As the ancient stone lifted and slotted back into place, a series of projectiles flew towards Twilight, revealing their target, a tall-robed stallion with evil glowing smoky eyes. A crackle of uncontrolled magic leapt from Twilight's horn, disrupting the time-viewing spell. Her body had frozen, her eyes widening. It seemed like she was going to start hyperventilating. A classic Twilight panic attack was incoming. Starlight took a few steps towards Twilight, moving with the intent to comfort her friend. Her horn was ready to contain any more errant discharges of magic. Twilight's eyes closed, and she inhaled a deep breath before opening her eyes once more. The calm but dangerous look now within them sent a shiver along Starlight's spine, halting her movement towards her. She caught Luna pausing to look at Twilight. Starlight turned away from the princesses because she did not want to look into those eyes any more than she had to. She then began investigating the room, preparing to recast her time-viewing spell. The slightest ripple of magic brushed against Starlight's horn. A moment later, the listening spell that she had up so she could listen to the Thestrals unexpectedly translated it to speech.
Twilight has returned to the Golden Oaks. Night. Yes. Now shall we see about this, Lulu? I am pact-sworn to deal with our foes, and my blades are not the only things that are eager for their blood.
Starlight felt her expression freeze. She was so very glad that she wasn't looking at either of them.
Pacts?
She managed to only cry out in her mind. Pacts were meant to be unbreakable magical contracts. The only reasons that she hadn't studied them is that they needed both parties to agree. Mind control didn't have such a limitation, so that's where she had focused on.
There has to be a perfectly good reason that Twilight is calling Luna Lulu, and that she has a pact to deal with her foes.
Shaking her head and closing her eyes, Starlight recreated the time spell, and let the images start flowing backwards again. I'm really glad that we got to see Starlight here, because she is just amazing. Now let's get on to our miraculous donators. Top donators: TacoCat598, Peter Coldhard, J Tinman, Darkside, Gauntlet, and Only One Thing. Zar630, Strix, Raiden, Narwhals, Black Moonheart, Drake Lovedragon, Pastel Skies, Dospo, Madman Stan, Delta Omega, Jack Hadge, Runescythe9852, Hunter Norman, Dash of Evergreen, Ronnie Dragonwolf, Ponyman, Talrasha, The Toilet Snake, Sword Brother and Mordred, Ronin Wandering, Random Person Man Guy, Easy, Skyochia, Leslie Prickett, Jordan Peterson, Crimson Kitsune 9, Lightskin, Monster Kitty, Tim Bob, and many more awesome people. Thank you all very much for watching this video, and live life to the fullest.